Beyond expectation.
The Honest Truth with Benito Bergatini. Smile 90.4 FM.
Joining us this evening to elaborate more on the trivialization of abuse and the cost of online misinformation as the digital uproar around #Justice for Cwecwe continues to grow is researcher at the Center for Analytics and Behavioural Change, Kyle Janse. Kyle, good evening and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Benito.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Your latest report, Justice for Cwecwe Social Media Analytics Fact Sheet, highlights how jokes and victim-blaming narratives flooded the Justice for Cwecwe conversation. Why do you think abuse is so frequently trivialized online?
I think, I was thinking about this question quite a lot today, and I think part of it stems from the culture we have built online. It's a culture without rules, without the societal norms. They don't apply online. But it's also a reflection of deeply held beliefs within certain South Africans, particularly. But then we also have to think about it as a reflection of South Africa in general. And what we have is a society that faces a lot of issues. We've got a lot of issues, whether that be political, social, economic, etc. And our first port of call for a lot of the society is to deflect with humor and that has sort of built a desensitized society such that we can find now trivialization of issues such as a 7-year-old being raped. And it's some of the comments being made under this guise of humor is horrific and utterly abhorrent.
Social media then in this instance, as you've highlighted, has been a platform for potentially awareness, for raising accountability, but also, as you point out, it can be a breeding ground for harm with so many of the stereotypes being expressed.
Yes, 100%. And we often like to think of social media in this positive light that, it does have the positive aspects, such as, justice for Cwecwe movement across South Africa, and it's been a port of call for a lot of people to raise awareness of these issues, and not just this instance, but instances outside of it as well. And we can't neglect that fact that it is an important platform to raise awareness, but at the same time, it's also a platform that can perpetuate harm, that has the ability to where these stereotypes become normalized, where the hurt and the harm becomes normalized and individuals become desensitized to it. And I'd like to highlight something quite important. After all of these comments and these hurtful posts, or harmful posts actually came out, the South African Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Twitter account, X account, noted some of these instances and put out a call saying that, we need to watch out for irresponsible use of social media. And it was a very important call to put out. It was a very important statement to get out there, and that they can and will hold individuals responsible that put out harmful content. But of course, now we've also seen that this account is suspended, which shows you that the double-edged sword of it has become a very important place for these messaging to go out, but also we've become reliant on it to get the messaging out. And what happens if the political economy of the day swifts and it sways and it changes?
How do we differentiate between facts and harmful speculation?
Very good question, Benito. It's a fantastic question. And I've been thinking about this as well, because social media has become a place where it's both fact and fiction that we find online. So we're not just going to find mis and disinformation, conspiracy theories. In between that, we do find factual accounts, actual stories, actual reporting of news. Of course, within every whether that be traditional media, whether that be social media, we need to have a sense of critical analysis of what we're looking at. Can we believe this? Has this been backed up? And I think it's also important to have the conversations online as well. You know, you mentioned how do we distinguish between fact and fiction, but sometimes it's not as clear as distinguishing between fact and fiction. Sometimes the harmful stereotypes, sometimes the harmful opinions aren't based in fact, nor are they based in fiction. They are just opinions of individuals. And what we haven't seen enough of in society is what we call the counter narratives. So we see a lot of these influencers, a lot of these posts gaining a wide audience, and a lot of people engaging with the content, misogynistic content endorsing violence, content endorsing harm, and liking it, retweeting it, reposting it, and posting in support of it. What we haven't seen is the counter narrative. Not enough citizens are going out and saying that, no, this is not enough. And those that do are getting piled on, and they are getting attacked. And unfortunately, that is the state of social media currently in South Africa.
And unfortunately, those proactive voices then are silenced in the process. Kyle Janse is research at the Center for Analytics and Behavioural Change, elaborating on the dangerous trivialization of abuse and the cost of online misinformation coming from the latest report, the Justice for Cwecwe social media analytics fact sheet. The research notes also that Cwecwe's story fits within a larger pattern of police brutality. How do these incidents then reflect these systemic issues in policing within poor and working class black communities?
I mean, there's been whites, and fortunate enough, law is my forte, having done LLB, and a lot of the focus is placed on inadequate access to justice, and whether police officers are trained with the necessary sensitivity to these matters. In respect of this particular matter, I would say that there's been too many gaps in communication. I think it goes right up to the minister and those that are a level above the investigating officer of the day, that there's been too many gaps in the communication, both going out to the broader society, and I'd hazard a guess and say to the family, to the affected family itself. And we haven't seen them come out firm enough to say this is what we have on the facts. Society, only later on, after the matter blew up, did they come out and say this is the facts, please do not take this any further than what we have given you. And it's a broader systemic issue. We have to ask the question, are our police officers trained with enough? Do they have the sensitivity training to handle these matters in the manner that it should? Because, as you'd be aware, we have a lot of instances where victims go to police stations and the police station turns them away, whether that be because they know the offender, whether they just don't know how to handle the matter, or whether they don't want to proceed because they don't consider it severe enough. So we do have a policing issue in respect of gender-based violence, rape, and sexual assault or sexual harms being perpetuated on women.
Kyle, victim blaming was also prevalent in the online conversation. Justice for Cwecwe. What strategies do you feel can be utilized to possibly change that to something a bit more humane, empathetic, search for justice and accountability, especially when there are children involved?
It's really, which is the first thing my mind went to when you asked that question was, how can we blame a victim when it's a 7-year-old child? You know, as how can certain individuals say that, no, why was the child in the environment? Why were they there? Or we've seen posts where people actually endorsed it, which was, again, disgusting. What we can do, I think it starts with education. And this is a broader conversation for all of us to have.
Yeah.
And it starts from a very young age. It's teaching that, that the way you dress is not an invitation. There's this very prominent saying that I always go back to in these conversations. Don't teach the girl child to dress appropriately. Teach the boy child not to rape. And the same goes vice versa, because it does happen to boys and men as well. Abuse, whether sexual assault as well. It's going back to those norms and values we instill in the children, in society in general as well, as to how we perceive the opposite sex, how we perceive other genders, and how do we educate and how do we sensitize, because we need to meet people where they are. We're not going to effect change overnight, but we can, if we can get to the basic understanding that all individuals deserve respect, all individuals deserve to be treated, as you mentioned, humanely and with dignity. We start with our starting point there, and then we move from that point onwards, and then we can get to the change. But if we can start from a point of understanding that all individuals deserve respect and dignity, and proceed from that point.
Kyle, lastly, why is it also so important for the Center for Analytics and Behavioural Change to monitor these digital conversations, particularly in moments of trauma?
I often liken this question, Benito, to the rapid rise, I'd say, in artificial intelligence, just because it's more current. We're adopting all of these technologies without really evaluating the benefits and the risks and the benefits compared to one another. I mean, we can see now the bias in AI, but that only comes after usage thereof. And that's a big thing for the Center for Analytics and Behavioural Change. We want to bring awareness that these conversations are happening online, whether you are party to them or not party to them. This is the current dominant narrative on social platforms. And we've had the breakthrough now where we have access to public posts on Facebook as well, so that we can investigate those narratives more deeply, as well as TikTok. And it's just bringing awareness to society, to South Africans, that these are the conversations being held online. These conversations, and it's not just, and this is the misnomer that a lot of people have, because it's happening online, it does not have real world consequences, where the opposite is true. Everything that happens online has a real world consequence as well. Those opinions formed and reinforced online will affect how that individual moves in the real world, the statements they made, the acts they do in the real world as well. And what we're really trying to do is bring awareness to that, the narratives, the conversations, and the impact that has in the real world.
Researcher at the Center for Analytics and Behavioural Change, Kyle Janse. Appreciate you joining us this evening, Kyle, enriching the conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you so much for having me again, Benito. And as always, a lovely conversation, and always a good conversation to have.
Smile.
It's pretty amazing.
90.4 FM.